Welcome to our Timeline Longevity Ask Me Anything with Dr. Anurag Singh. I'm Federico Luna, the Chief Brand and Marketing Officer here at Timeline. We're first and foremost, Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a great break and you're coming back re-energized, and you most importantly have a longevity plan for 2025. If you don't, then you should, and we can help you build one. So I'm the Chief Marketing and Brand Officer here at Timeline. We're based in Switzerland. In fact, we're calling in today here from the Swiss Federal Technology Institute, EPFL, which is where Timeline was born over 15 years ago, believe it or not. That's how long we've been on this adventure. And I'm very lucky to work and actually share my office with Dr. Anurag Singh, who truly is, in my opinion, and in not just my opinion, in many people's opinions, one of the foremost leaders in the longevity space around the world. So before we begin and I do a further introduction on Anurag, I would like to remind you that while Anurag is a phenomenal MD, not just MD and Ph.D., we'll talk about that in just a sec. While he is a phenomenal doctor, he is not your doctor. And so please make sure that, I encourage you to consult with your healthcare provider for any personalized medical advice, specifically if you have any specific health concerns or conditions. So Dr. Anurag Singh is the Chief Medical Officer here at Timeline. He is not only did he do a very hard and difficult medical degree, so he's an MD, but after that decided that wasn't enough and went off to do a Ph.D. And so he's been with Timeline for over 8 years, I believe, Anurag, is that
10.
right? Oh.
Over 10.
Over 10 years, over a decade here helping us build this phenomenal company and this phenomenal technology that has become the blockbuster that today is known as Mitopure. And so maybe just starting with a couple of personal questions, Dr. Singh, if I may. So my first question is precisely around what motivated you to do your medical degree, and what motivated you after all that hard work to then go and not only do an MD, but also get a PhD?
Well, I come from a family of engineers, and I had always desired to be, my biology was calling for me. And so I studied biology for many years and then decided to go to medical school. And I went to one of the most premier medical schools in India and then subsequently to the US. And while I was seeing patients, I realized, and a lot of them, I trained in the field of allergy and immunology, and I used to see a lot of people with low immune system and what we call immune aging. And I realized we were really seeing people who had, I was seeing them in their 70s and 80s, that they were really, the symptoms began much early on. The problems that we were seeing as doctors in the 70s and 80s started probably 20, 30 years before. And so, I was very lucky to have great mentors, great professors who guided me, and that led me to the journey of, that's now 20 years of research in the longevity field.
And why do people are asking if you wouldn't mind speaking up, but
yeah, sure.
Why do a PhD?
Yeah, so when you're, most doctors today, they know how to diagnose symptoms and treat the symptoms. They don't really know the biology, how to, the first steps of the disease process start.
The root causes?
The root causes, what we call, what is the source of all these problems? And it became very clear to me that unless you put the hard yards in, unless you really understood these foundational problems that were happening at a cellular level, at a mitochondrial level, that the answers to a lot of those chronic ailments that happen with aging lie in those answers. And so I spent many years studying the immune system and how it ages. And then for the last 15 years, I've been researching mitochondria and cellular health.
And you did your PhD at the University of Connecticut?
Yeah, this was in the US in UConn. So for those of you who are from Connecticut, go Huskies.
And tell me, as you talk about root causes, some people call them the hallmarks of aging. I mean, what are some of your favorite, and do you think are the most important, but also most actionable? And which ones are maybe less actionable today?
Yeah, so this is a seminal paper about 15 years back that showed the that there are about 9 key biology pathways that contribute to the aging process. And more recently, 3 more have been added. And we call them the 12 hallmarks of aging. Now, what has become very clear is that these are not isolated hallmarks. They are all very closely linked to each other. And the 2 or 3 hallmarks that I believe are really central to the aging process and are amenable to interventions to delay the aging and improve health span. These are one, linked to chronic inflammation. So inflammation is a big driver of the aging process. The second is mitochondrial dysfunction, which really means that the mitochondria, which are the energy providers of at a cell level, but at the whole body level, their health is declining as we age. And the third is really linked to how we recycle and repair. This is a process we call autophagy. So that's where we are focused on these 3 pathways.
And what about stuff we hear about telomeres and we hear about all this?
Yeah, I think that sounds a bit more Star Trek, kind of more sci-fi. There is obviously a lot of efforts to address the telomere attrition. There are definitely other pathways like senescence. Senescence means that your cells are kind of slowing down and become zombie-like, and they are still taking nutrients, but they're not doing the job. And so I do believe that that's a viable strategy. I do believe that repairing the gut microbiome with aging, the gut microbiome dysfunction happens. And so that is another viable pathway. But all roads lead to what I believe are mitochondrial health and the high inflammation that happens with aging.
Mm-hmm. So my last question for you, and then we'll move. Thank you to everyone that pre-submitted questions and the live questions coming through. If you have any questions, please put them on the chat. We'll try to get it to as many of these as we can. As you look back, we just finished 2024, phenomenal year for science and for us as a company and our research. What were you most excited about in 2024? Some of the key discoveries and achievements that we made around, the importance of mitochondrial health, longevity, but also urolithin A.
Yeah.
And what are you excited about as you think about the future?
So I think in the longevity space, probably the most exciting finding came out from the Stanford University, and they really studied every known human protein in the body, and they found that actually most of, if you look at these biomarkers, if I can call them, there's 2 peaks that happen of aging. One happens in the early 40s or sort of late 30s, early 40s, and the second happens around the 60s. So what it means is what shows the whole longevity field is that there are 2 parts of the aging cycle that are most amenable to intervention. And so to me, that was a very big discovery for last year. In terms of mitochondrial health, I think the field is taking small steps, but at a slower pace. There is this challenge to find this holy biomarker that allows clinicians, everyday clinics to kind of look at mitochondrial health. And I think we are getting there. And maybe that we need to build on in this next year on these discoveries. And in terms of urolithin A, I already mentioned I'm a trained immunologist, and for many, many years I've looked at how immune system can be modulated, and somehow life's come a full circle. Studying mitochondria for 15 years, I now see this really close interaction between mitochondrial health and your immune system. And so what we found was, and hopefully this comes out in a very big publication early on in this year, is that by modulating the mitochondrial health of immune cells, you can actually rev up this immune aging process. And so that's what, to me, was the 3 highlights of the year.
Super. Okay, well, let's get to your questions. So we're going to do a mix of some of the pre-submitted ones and then get to as many of the live ones as we can. So there's questions around dosing. What is the right dose? What doses have we studied of Mitopure? And also, for how long should people be taking it?
Yeah, sure. So, as Federico mentioned, we've been running randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials on urolithin A or Mitopure for the last 10 plus years. And we've looked at older adults, we've looked at middle-aged adults, and now we've even looked at athletes and younger adults. And what is clear, and I'm an evidence-based person, what is very clear is that the best doses where you start impacting mitochondrial health, sort of reviving the faulty mitochondria back to good shape, the best dose is 500 milligrams. So in about a month, what we see in these randomized trials, and that's what we recommend, is that we start seeing the faulty mitochondria the zombie-like mitochondria renew themselves, and we start seeing healthier new mitochondria, and we start seeing more energy. So in the longer term trials, around 2 to 4 months, in 2 months, we start seeing more physiological measures being improved. So things like, linked to energy production, and in the longer term, the real data, the significantly enhancement is on muscle strength, and in many cases also we see a dampening of what we call inflammaging.
And what about, there's also studies on skin?
Yeah, so skin is a different format and a different way to provide Mitopure. In fact, we learned from you, the consumers, early on, who started taking the oral pills, who started writing to us how, some of you told us how the skin was looking great. And so we imbibed, or we learned from that feedback, and we started studying the effect of Mitopure on skin cells. And we found that Mitopure was behaving exactly the same way that we had discovered before on muscle cells and immune cells, in that with aging, the skin cells mitochondria decline in their health, and they produce less energy. They also factories making collagen. And so we ran multiple randomized trials again, and we saw that putting 1% Mitopure in the skin cream is a very effective dose, and we start seeing improvement in skin hydration, and lowering of wrinkles, and again, inflammation in skin,
and also collagen rewire, right?
Right. As I mentioned, the mitochondria are these factories that are very key. They take your protein, they synthesize amino acids. They also produce a lot of hormones. They also are involved in the collagen pathways. And so what we see is that sort of we hit on these collagen degradation enzymes that go up with aging. And by that, we rewire the collagen back to more a younger version. And so that's what we are seeing in these trials.
Okay, super. And so what are, as you think about the future, and obviously, some of these new frontiers for Urolithin A, there's questions on the chat around insulin resistance. Do we think that this could potentially help with insulin resistance? Do we think that this could potentially help with ocular health? Do we think it could potentially help with CFS? So what are the sort of, where do you think the science is on some of these new frontiers, and what are you most excited about?
Now, mitochondria are central to energy production. Think of mitochondria as these energy factories. So any cell type that has mitochondria that relies on energy, and with aging that will get hit, I believe Urolithin A can help that particular cell type and the conditions that come with it. So you talked about fatigue and CFS. Fatigue is very intricately linked to energy. Now, most of the trials we've done have been in healthy adults. And I want to really mention that, because most of our trials are done in older adults who are healthy, or middle-aged adults who are healthy. Now, we haven't really done trials in folks who have CFS. So this is an active area of research for the future. But having known the field of CFS, I know that these folks have problems with mitochondrial dysfunction, and potentially it could help there. The other things you mentioned
there's a lot of interest here in the chat around long COVID. And I know we haven't run a clinical study on long COVID, so we most definitely cannot.
I think, again, based on evidence, we don't have a randomized clinical trial done on long COVID today, and it probably will be very difficult to run. But what we do know is there are multiple clinical and scientific studies showing very clearly that damaged mitochondria are predominant in the blood cells of people who have long COVID. And so it could make sense to supplement potentially, or research in this area.
Okay. And what about other areas? Again, we haven't done a clinical study on cancer. We're focused on keeping healthy people healthier for longer. That's our focus as a nutrition company. But are there other scientists around the world that are doing research on cancer and other things?
Yeah, so there's a lot of new research that is happening, and I always say research is 2 words, re and search, and you need to keep building the evidence continuously over the spectrum of time. So today we are engaged in a large randomized clinical trial with the world's top aging research institute, which is the National Institute of Aging. And so to come back to your insulin resistance point, we are doing a study on metabolic health and in people or folks who have pre-diabetes and insulin resistance to see how Mitopure supplementation can have an effect in that population. This is being done by an independent study team. On cancer, we have already evidence in preclinical models where we have seen different investigators report that urolithin A activates mitophagy in a certain population of immune cells that are very stem cell-like, so they're very youthful cells, and they can then defeat cancer in certain models of cancer. And so today what we are doing is collaborating with these same groups, and we today have a trial with the premier cancer institute in the world, the National Cancer Institute, which is now researching in prostate cancer how taking urolithin A, Mitopure supplementation is going to be beneficial. And we're just about to launch another trial with an investigator who is going to study how Mitopure can complement standard immunotherapies.
Okay. And what about other things like high blood pressure, hypertension, mast cell activation syndrome, other things like that?
Yeah. So again, as part of the study I mentioned with the National Institute of Aging, we will be looking at things like, for example, blood pressure and metabolic profiles. So we will be able to study the effects of Mitopure on cholesterol and things like this. On mast cell and sort of eczema-like reactions, I think we should think more on the topical, because that's where the mast cells are mostly found in the skin layers, and so maybe that's where. But these are, again, studies that need to be done.
Okay. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We'll come more to other conditions. I see brain health being mentioned, diabetes, arthritis.
Well, maybe I can quickly add on the brain health. There was actually a very remarkable study done by the National Institute of Aging last year that came out showing that preventing cognitive decline with urolithin A was possible in certain animal models. And so we are now trying to collaborate with the same team to kind of translate that into humans.
Okay, super. Actually, before we move on, we've spoken about all these potential promises and they have tremendous potential. I think it might be helpful if you could just summarize for us, what have we proven in the clinic? Mm-hmm. What do we feel comfortable has been shown in humans? Which areas?
Yeah, I think the standout data is mitochondrial rejuvenation. Okay, so with aging, with stress, with being sedentary, with not eating right, mitochondria are the centerpiece of what gets damaged, and we know Mitopure can reverse quite a lot of that damage. And we have taken biopsies, we have taken the blood, and everything we see in terms of positive effect points, all roads point to an improvement in mitochondrial health. And that can be summarized into improvement in cellular health and cellular energy. So that's probably the number one research-based evidence we have. In terms of, let's say, clinical finding, we have seen without changing diet or physical activity levels in for example, middle-aged to older adults, we see after 4 months significantly improved muscle strength in participants. Then the other finding, which I see very commonly in most of these trials, is with even, for example, going a bit higher dose when we...
So that's at a gram?
At a gram, is that we really start seeing effects on boosting endurance and dampening inflammation. I would say this is sort of the sphere of the evidence we have.
And then obviously there's the skin, the topical.
Obviously there's the skin at 1%. The data is very consistent on really remodeling the collagen pathways and boosting the cellular energy of the skin to delay signs of skin aging, which is basically wrinkles and poor skin hydration.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to change gears a little bit. We'll come back to some of these conditions, and please continue to ask these great questions on the chat. Maybe a few more practical questions. What is the best time of day to take the product?
I think if you look at all the trials have been done mostly in people who have fasted overnight, and so it's the first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. I have to say that we have done the trial. We have done trials where we have given a heavy breakfast along with Mitopure, and we see the same absorption profile of Mitopure. So I think there's no perfect time, but yes, you can say that in the morning probably fits best with the regimen of most people who take supplements.
So that's for the supplement. And on the supplement side, is there any difference between taking the powder or taking the capsules? Are they bioequivalent?
So we have done that as well. We have studied the powder versus the pill, and they both give the exact same profile of Mitopure release and Mitopure absorption. And so I believe they are very bioequivalent. Now, just to add on the skin regimen of how we have obviously developed different products and have tested them clinically. One is the day cream, one is the night cream, and one is the serum. And all these products give almost bioequivalent effects on improved hydration and sort of lowering signs of skin aging. The day cream is obviously was in the trials applied in the day, and the night cream was applied in the evening.
Is it okay to take both products? I mean, would you recommend that people take both the supplement and the skincare?
So the oral obviously goes everywhere, goes to every body, goes to every cell which has mitochondria, and it's what I call, hitting. If you're thinking about skin, it's hitting skin from within, right? So you're nourishing your skin and tackling the hallmarks of skin aging from within. The topical is directly acting on the organ in case of skin, the skin aging process directly, and we know it permeates. It is penetrant on the skin layers, and it hits the different cell types and the processes that are declining on the skin side. So I think, and this is a study we are actually is a highlight study that we are going to do this year. I believe the combined approach of oral and topical supplementation will be a blockbuster for the skin aging sort of as a solution, and there will be nothing like it.
And people are asking, can they open up the capsule and put it on their skin? Is that a good idea, or maybe might it be just better to just use the topical product?
I think it'll be better to use the topical product. I think it'll be very messy to open. I believe it or not, I've tried it. When you cut it, you get a lot of stuff. It's a pill, so when you cut it, just a lot of stuff pops here and there. And what the cream ensures is that we have a calibrated dose, 1% Mitopure, that we know does the job. I'll have to translate, figure out the mathematical calculation of the oral to the topical.
Yeah. What about, let's talk maybe a little bit about safety, the safety of the molecule, and also the fact that this is a postbiotic, right? So maybe a couple of questions here. First question is, can't I just eat pomegranates, right? Should I mix this, and should I continue to drink pomegranate juice while taking this? And then have we seen any side effects any negative side effects in our studies?
So let's take your first question. So how, can we just take pomegranates? The answer is perhaps for some, the blessed ones, as I call them, yes, because some people do have the right gut microbiome, and they may absorb. So the way Urolithin A is produced in the body is that it's a postbiotic, and when you're taking pomegranates or berries or nuts, you will digest these complex antioxidants, or what we call polyphenols, and the gut microbiome will simplify them and release Urolithin A. Now, a majority of healthy adults cannot do this conversion, and the ones that can do it very inefficiently, and that's why the reason to supplement with it. Because, for example, I've tried all my adult life to try to see if I can make this molecule, and I don't. And it's probably because growing up, I took a lot of antibiotics, for example, and my gut microbiome has never recovered. So in this case, yeah, if you are eating right, if you're eating a lot of fiber, and you think, well, we are developing a test, so it's not sold commercially, but if you want, we can provide you with that kit to participate in it. And if you're making Urolithin A, then you probably have a chance, but most people don't. So I think you need to supplement. And your second question was on the side effects. Now, it's been 10 plus years, 1,000, almost 1,200 participants, from 20-year-old elite athletes to an 89-year-old lady who was my favorite clinical trial participant, who Even though in a blinded study, she always kept writing to me that I think I'm on the real product because I'm gardening more. So we have really looked at the extreme spectrum. We haven't really seen any product-related side effects in any of the trials. And today, and so I think evolutionary, we all have been making this molecule and we've lost the capability. So it's a very safe molecule.
What you talked a lot about mitochondrial health, how important it is. I mean, there are other ingredients and actives and molecules that act on the mitochondria.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We hear a lot about CoQ10. We hear a lot about NAD, NMN, spermidine, and other things. How would you say, what is unique about Mitopure?
Mm-hmm. So think of mitochondrial rejuvenation or how you can boost mitochondrial health. There are three ways today that scientists in the longevity field really know how to. So just to kind of simplify your question, one is what we scientists and clinicians call biogenesis. And that really means creating newer healthy mitochondria. And that's where what Federico is saying, NAD supplements, NR, and NMN fit in. And then there's a second pathway, which is improving the efficiency of mitochondria. That's where things like CoQ10, L-carnitine fit in. Then there is the third pathway, which is very unique. And Mitopure Urolithin A is the only natural molecule known to stimulate this pathway. Now, in a cell, there's limited real estate. And with aging, most of the real estate is filled with damaged mitochondria. And so unless you clean out the waste, which is what Mitopure is doing, you're not gonna get more efficient mitochondria or newer healthy mitochondria. And so I think, and what we are seeing in our studies also, when we do biopsies, is that after a month, we start seeing newer, healthier mitochondria come in. Now, having said that, there is probably a case to take Mitopure and then put some of these strategies in conjunct, like CoQ10 or NAD supplementation.
So just so I understand it, it sounds like it's potentially doing a 2-in-1. So it's cleaning out the damaged mitochondria first, and then it's having a downstream impact. So mitophagy first, it cleans out the garbage, recycles it, and has a downstream impact on creating new healthy mitochondria known as biogenesis.
And that's what we see in a randomized trial. You clean out the waste, you clean out the trash becomes recycled, it becomes the building block of newer healthy mitochondria. And one of the gold standard markers to find newer healthy mitochondria is to look at mitochondrial abundance and a marker called PGC1 alpha, which for many years longevity scientists have been looking. And we always see with Mitopure supplementation, PGC1 alpha going up, mitochondrial abundance going up. But as you said, the mitophagy is a very early event.
Okay. So a couple of pre-submitted questions that came through, and then we can go back to the live chat. So someone here saying, I follow the Dr. Longo's 5-day fast mimicking diet. So essentially fasting to promote autophagy. How is this different? How is mitophagy different to autophagy? And if I'm doing fasting, should I also be taking timeline?
Yeah, so fasting induces autophagy. Autophagy, as everybody knows, is sort of this self-cleaning, self-eating. You're allowing all the damaged cellular waste to come out, get recycled. That's what autophagy is. Mitophagy is targeted autophagy to the mitochondria. So basically, you have damaged mitochondria that are then recycled. Now, I know fasting is popular, and fasting is probably one of the best strategies for improving mitochondrial health. I know the fasting mimicking diet has had some great clinical evidence in different populations, especially for cancer. The way Mitopure is different from fasting is that it hits the same biology minus staying away from fasting this long. So what we see, and it's very targeted to, as I said, mitophagy. So yes, caloric restriction induces autophagy, but Mitopure is very specific, is activating a very specific form of mitophagy. And perhaps, and I need to write to Walter Longo and maybe think that maybe we need to study the two together. And maybe that's even a more robust strategy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. What about rapamycin? And what are your thoughts on rapamycin and NMN specifically?
So rapamycin is again a natural molecule. It was derived also from the soil in somewhere in South America, and has been studied for many years. It has also become an FDA-approved drug for immunosuppression. Okay, and with the name of tacrolimus or sirolimus. And I think it has a lot of, it acts through a very different longevity pathway that we call the mTOR pathway. I think I appreciate it for its longevity benefits, but as an immunologist, I don't appreciate it for its immunosuppression benefits. And I think that's what makes Mitopure perhaps more unique, is that it's an immune modulator. So it kind of boosts the mitochondrial health of the immune system and kind of revs up the immune system to tackle all kinds of challenges on the immune system. And it has all these great impacts on longevity pathways. The other one you mentioned was NMN. NMN is perhaps the most potent NAD modulator that has been studied today. NAD is this sort of cycles NAD, what we call the NAD salvage pathway in the cells, that is very key to sort of energy production and conservation. And NMN, the issue today is that NMN is not seen as a supplement. The FDA thinks it's a drug, and so there's always this controversy on whether it's a supplement or a drug. So I think the closest I can compare Mitopure is, we did this study long back with Professor Johan Ulrichs, who's a very leading mitochondrial guru in lower species, the worms, and we compared the lifespan boost with all these interventions. The highest lifespan or boost is through caloric restriction, about 50%. Mitopure induced a 45% improvement in lifespan. The closest compound that came close to Mitopure was metformin with about 40%, and NAD modulators were about 20%, and I think rapamycin was same.
So maybe just to close us off, and we'll be doing more of these sessions in the month of January. If you find these helpful, please send us an email, care@timeline.com. My last question would be around, we pioneered all the science around Urolithin A. There are cheaper alternatives of what seem to be Urolithin A on Amazon and other places. What's the difference? What's the difference between Mitopure and these other presumable Urolithin A's?
Yeah, so on one hand, you have 15 years of dedicated scientists and clinicians who have studied the molecule. The purity of the Urolithin A we manufacture is very ultra pure, highly GMP compliant. It's certified by all the authorities like NSF as one of the highest purity. Now we have, and we know it's safe. Let's start there. We know this Mitopure is super safe and it has these effects. Now the other Urolithin A products you see out there, they're probably all coming from Urolithin A manufactured in China, perhaps. And we have gone in and actually looked into the concentration of Urolithin A. I can probably summarize that probably majority of them, 70 to 80%, don't even have Urolithin A. And those that have it, is the safety is unknown. So please, all I can say as a clinician, as a scientist, and not because I'm coming from Timeline, is that bet on the version that scientists and doctors have studied and we know is of good quality and safety.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, folks, we're going to close off our first AMA with Dr. Anurag Singh for 2025. I want to thank everyone. We will be taking note of your questions, and we'll be following up with you either via email or in a follow-up chat. Please do share with your friends, family, anyone you think who can benefit from obviously Timeline, but also the knowledge that Dr. Singh, and it's a very unique company to have people like Dr. Singh and so many PhDs, not only founding the company, but still with the company today. So please do share. And have a great 2025. Make sure you've got that longevity plan. If you don't have one, we can help you build one. So take care and hope to see you soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.